And I am sitting here today with Daisy Brown and her lovely newborn child. And
this one isn't a newborn. The newborn's
okay, well, pretty darn new. This one looks pretty fresh to me. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, Daisy? Now, just to give everybody the update, I'll probably link a picture of the horrible video footage that we're all touched by. The reason that I met Daisy Brown was I watched that video, tore my heart open, and I had to reach out to her. So fortunately, more and more people are doing just that, and I think we're going to take this horrible thing that our government is doing and wake up people to what they're doing, and hopefully cause more people to fight and more people to support those that are fighting. And that's why we're here. So Daisy Brown is now a member of our Human Solution and starting a chapter up in Butte County. Beautiful. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, about a year ago, this time, September 29th of last year, about 8 o'clock in the morning, I was lying in bed nursing my, at that time, 28-day-old, my 14-month-old sons. And I hear pounding on the door. And what ensued was a raid, sort of a SWAT team stylies with the whole...
Isn't it funny how they love to do that with the rifles and the...
I didn't understand. I thought maybe I had the wrong address.
Right. Surely you're not here for me.
They were like, you know, Elian Gonzalez with the shields and the rifles and the camouflage gear, and just like, wow. And it turns out they were there for us. They had come to our house 3 weeks earlier on a compliance check, and my husband normally would say, get the fuck out of here, go get a warrant. But if you're not doing anything wrong, you've been flying over all summer, you know I'm here, and I got, 30 plants in the backyard, and everything's legit, so come on in, boys. Everything was fine. They chatted him up. Good luck with the baby. Good luck with your harvest. See you next year. Well, what ensued then 3 weeks later was a raid. And when they came, they were looking for guns and drugs and money and all sorts of exciting stuff. And what they found
Alice's Restaurant,
really boring granola, non-television having family in a mountain, just growing some pot and some babies, kind of minding their own business. And we didn't realize that there is a bounty on the heads of children. There's a huge financial incentive for counties, cash-strapped counties like Butte County, to close their money gaps by placing children in the foster care system and then a lot of times adopting them out.
So what you're saying is CPS is actually kind of a...
trafficking children.
Right.
In 1997, if I can give you a little bit of history, there was a piece of legislation called the American Safe Families Act that was signed into place by Clinton. It was sort of a feel-good sort of legislation. The objective was to place a financial incentive for families to adopt children. So we have a lot of children in the foster care system.
Just helping people.
They figure a lot of people can't afford to adopt kids and they want to, so that'll kind of solve that problem. Well, what happens is then you create a financial incentive for the bureaucratic agencies that kind of control this flow of kids, if you will. And the way that the legislation was set up was that if you adopt 50 children out this year, next year, in order to get the funding, you need to adopt at least 50 and above that. So counties like Butte County, where there's poor education systems, there's not very much jobs, there's a lot of drug use and a lot of those sort of problems you find with poverty.
Typical rural, sort of depressed areas.
And you find that these people are really easy to aggressively take their children from them. And Butte County actually is #1 in the state, more than Alameda and all of the other counties combined. 37% of the children that are in poverty in Butte County are taken into the foster care system.
And unfortunately, pretty white kids are a premium.
They're at the top of the market.
Yeah.
And so the legislation in 1997 was bolstered by something signed by Bush in 2003 that had an additional financial incentive for children over 9 with special needs. Well, special needs can mean anything, i.e. my children exposed to drugs, drugs being marijuana, because the federal government doesn't recognize medical marijuana. So each child that is placed in foster care is worth roughly $800 a month, and then if those children are adopted out, they're worth roughly $6,000 apiece. So 2 infant blonde-haired, blue-eyed boys like mine were just, I'm sure there was a stack of people already lined up for them.
Exactly.
So after they arrested us both for cultivation, possession for sales. They found some honey oil, and they charge of manufacturing controlled substance other than PCP. So the same charge that's used for like a giant meth lab was used for a Pyrex dish with honey oil and tinctures. No butane, no volatile chemicals.
Just making some Simpson oil, yeah.
Kind of a Girl Scout home jobby type deal. So they arrested us, and my bail was $250,000, and my husband
you beat me by $10,000.
$250,000, and Jamie's, my husband, was $500,000.
Wow.
And the kids were carted off to foster care.
Right.
I fortunately happened to get the right judge on the right day, and he let me out on my own recognizance, which was much to the chagrin of the district attorney's office.
Right.
But it was one of those amazing things that really kind of lent itself to the whole process. So as soon as I hit the pavement, I hit the pavement running. And I would think any desperate parent would do. I started off very simply by just putting our story on a piece of paper and standing outside of a gas station and just frantically passing out flyers, talking to anybody who would listen. Because I realized that CPS wanted me to cop to being a terrible mother and a drug addict and just an all-around degenerate, which is not the case. And so,
how did you end up getting that video?
Well, Jamie has represented himself from the beginning. So when they started to arrest me, and I was holding the baby in my arms like this, and I realized, like, oh my God, they're really going to pull this baby out of my arms. And they stepped on my legs and ripped him from me. I had started screaming and going nuts, and so they started recording it to cover their own asses. Little did they know that we would have access to the discovery because Jamie is acting as his own attorney.
Oh, so those are their own videos.
So it's their own audio.
Oh, I thought you guys had a hidden camera somewhere.
No, that was their own audio.
Even better. Good job.
Better. So, and the district attorney's office has been very unhappy about the widespread attention that it's gotten, so much so that they've asked the judge to put a gag order in place, to which the judge has replied, I don't think so.
Yeah,
sure.
This is kind of, I don't know.
I don't want to touch it.
Right.
And it's too late now anyways.
Right, it's already out there. It's already viral.
So we got the audio, and I heard it, and I knew that its disturbing nature was more than just my bias. And I felt like it was really important for people to know what exactly is happening. And it's not,
touched a lot of people.
You hear about someone getting their children taken, and I know the obvious instinct is, oh, well, there must be more to the story.
Right.
There must be something I don't know.
Right.
They don't just take away, there's something else we don't know.
Heard that so many times. Right.
I'm sure she's really nice, I'm sure. And I'm here to tell you there is no more to the story. That is it. They
just
snatched
pot.
our babies
Yeah.
over pot. Pot that they 3 weeks earlier told us looked good.
Right.
So it's with our tax dollars this is happening. We are snatching children from poor people and essentially selling them to the highest bidder. And in my particular case, it was because we were medical cannabis patients. And they
easy targets.
It's low-hanging fruit.
Right.
You know, a lot of what they wanted me to admit to, and Jamie, was that we were drug addicts and we needed outpatient intensive drug rehab.
Right.
And that we needed intensive 18 months worth of parenting classes and a number of other things until it would prove that we truly were fit parents. Well,
right.
And first of all, that's all nonsense, but to admit to agree to do any of that would be to say that how I was living before wasn't acceptable.
Exactly.
And the one thing I will say about myself with no humility is that I'm a damn good mother. So I don't need parenting classes, and smoking pot doesn't make me a drug addict.
Oh,
so
or a bad parent.
Or a bad parent. So I refused kind of to admit that. And I think they realized after going on 4 or 5 months they just weren't going to get anywhere with us. And so I'd like to say that they returned the children because they saw the error of their ways, but they returned the children because I got a Marinol prescription. And they couldn't tell if the THC in my urine was from cannabis or from Marinol.
Right.
So it was a better checkmate move, is ultimately what it
So
came
we've
down
learned a couple of tricks up our sleeves.
Tricks of the trade. Unfortunately, my children had to pay the price, and like they were pawns, you know, like mommy just had a better move, and so they got to come home.
The thing that you would never think your own government would do.
Exactly. I never
use your own kids.
That's the thing. I'm not that naive, but I really believed. I knew when it was all happening during the raid, we're losing our crop. Jamie, you're going to jail. CPS is here. This is all bad, but they are not going to pull this 28-day
They're not going to take my kids.
nursing newborn from my arms. And I nursed in front of them. They saw me feed the baby.
Right.
So I didn't think they were going to wrestle me to the ground and beat the shit out of me and take the baby from my arms. I really just didn't. That was a shock even to me, and I'm the conspiracy theorist through and through.
Right.
But I think it's really critical that people know that that's what's happening. That regular ass folks are having their children.
Just regular people doing nothing wrong.
There's so much money behind it, and you know, we are in the final days of prohibition, and this is the desperate measures they're taking. You know, what can we do to get to people we can take their kids?
Well, and not only is that their side of it, but our side of it is we're the brave warriors that are going to stand up and ultimately push this thing over. So
and it's necessary, and people said to me, like, oh, you know, you can't, your kids, just play their game, just play their game.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, you don't make deals with the devil.
No.
Second of all,
you'd end up in prison anyways if you did their thing.
I feel like as much as I'm a keeper of my children's welfare and their health and their shelter and clothing and food, I'm a keeper of their civil rights.
Of course.
And how can I look them in the eyes and say, you know what, Mommy, compromise whatever, I admitted to whatever just to make sure that you can come home. I didn't feel like I could do that. I felt like we're on a battlefield, and what good do I do them if I drag them off the battlefield with no arms and no legs?
Absolutely.
So I feel like, you know, they were going to be in foster care for X amount of time anyways, because they have funding. They have to hit a 3-month mark and a 6-month mark. So they were going to be there for any increment of 3 months anyways.
Exactly.
And in the meantime, I think it was really critical that, you know, one thing somebody said to me was, oh, girl, you can't stand up to CPS. And
right.
Are you kidding me?
Right.
It's like a bully on the playground.
You know who they are?
Can,
right.
And you will, and you have to. And as long as you're unwavering in that, and I know that I'm a good mom, and I know cannabis is an amazing healing plant. And I've seen it do amazing, wonderful things, and I refuse to let it be demonized by the bureaucracies that are. And I think we all, you know, people take for granted that I can just walk down the street and smoke a joint, but there's a baby somewhere that's paying the price.
Exactly.
That's happening every day, and I think it's really important that people are aware that we're in extreme circumstances, and it's not just did 2 days in jail for a half. No, they're snatching babies, and they're
putting people in prison, and they're taking their stuff, and they're taking their money, and
they're robbers. They're just, you know, and that's what I kept saying is that you kidnapped my children and you robbed us.
Right.
Armed, masked gunmen, armed high-powered assault rifles came into my house early in the morning, took our shit, and snatched my kids. I don't know what you call that. That's kidnapping and robbery.
Exactly.
Anybody else came into my house doing that, you know, and this
It'd
is the
be
thing,
a crime.
like, we didn't have any guns in our house. We didn't have any television. My children had never seen a weapon in their life.
Right.
Never seen until it came through the door.
Right.
And to watch my 13-month-old son toddle around the living room while he has a high-powered assault rifle pointed at his head, this is where we're at.
Right.
Over pot. So I think it's important that not only people are aware of that, but they do something. You know, we don't fulfill that stereotype that we're lazy stoners and we'll wait for somebody else to do shit.
Exactly. Time to get up, stand up.
Really, like, light your joint and then the fire under your ass.
Exactly. Get the asses off their asses off their asses.
Support and just conversations with people, and it's really
You need to be out there, and little things like this, or getting on the radio, or getting on TV, getting that story, writing that story. You know, you writing that story helped to inspire dozens, if not hundreds of people, and then me finding out about it is going to help it inspire more, and then it just goes on from there, you know.
There's so many myths, you know, whether or not consuming cannabis and breastfeeding is you know, really dangerous, or whether you can eat raw cannabis and fall into a coma. You know, child abuse charges against me on both of those arguments, and they're just fallacies.
Right.
Fallacies.
There's no examples, none.
It's an affront to the intelligence of, you know, the American people to continue with this charade of pot as this dangerous, horrible drug, because it's not.
Right.
If you're not on the side that it's a healing plant, fine, but it's certainly not. It's not the demon they've cooked it up to be, and I think we can expect more from our intellect to accept that. So.
Excellent. Well, Daisy, you certainly have a great command of the language, and you know what you're talking about, and you know, you're certainly not that dumbass stoner that they think we are.
They should have asked around. They thought they were just dragging some, like,
fortunately,
mama off the mountains, nut job.
I'm glad they picked the wrong one, because probably the other 20 they took didn't do anything about it. So, well, welcome to the fight, and you know, I hope to know your children when they're older, so we can talk about our battle and how they don't have to worry about this anymore.
Absolutely.
Excellent. Well, thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much.
All right. Bye.